to our next guest, actually, who joins us from America, where he's been covering the golf, the Players' Championship in Florida. Award-winning journalist with the Daily Mail and Gordon Thomas protege, we like to call him. Riath Al-Samarrai with us on the show. Riath, how are you?
I'm very well, especially after that billing. I mean, I've been known for much of my life as a poor man's Gordon Thomas. So it's about time that was recognised fully.
Listen, it's really good to talk to you, and congratulations, because you have had quite a week, really, haven't you? Obviously been covering the golf, but last week you picked up a brilliant double, Sports Writer of the Year and Sports News Reporter awards. Congratulations! That must have been something to win those. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was lovely, actually. It was a nice and very pleasant surprise. So sort of nice ceremony in London. It was the Sports Journalists Association Awards, which is basically the time once a year when my industry gets together and sort of pats itself on the back quite enthusiastically. I mean, we've been accused of being a self-indulgent industry a lot, and I mean, my wife's got great feelings on this subject, but how we all get together in a room and say, I think you're great, no, I think you're great, I think you're great, and then behind our back, no, I think he's terrible, it's awful. But yeah, no, it seemed to go in my favour this year, so it was it was a really nice thing.
Excellent. Go on, Fraser.
Yeah, Riath, firstly, congratulations, mate. Great double and well deserved. Following your work with Norman through some superb stuff of late, especially on Live Golf and so on. But, you know, with the way the industry is changing now, Riath, it is very much an internet-based injury. I don't want to use the word clickbait, but you know what I'm getting there. There tends to be more emphasis on speed and getting word out there than there is an actual quality of writing. How have you maintained it? How do you maintain, you know, the ethos maybe of writing long articles, opinionated articles, and delving deep, and perhaps staying away from what some parts of the industry are becoming, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, man. Like you and I kind of both know, being at that kind of sort of face of the industry, really, that there has been that shift online, and that, you know, it's changed this glorious world that I think I kind of just missed it. I think I came a little bit too late into the industry, when once upon a time you'd have this lovely, rigid, archaic deadline set at some point late in the evening.
Stop press.
You know, it's like I'm not going to cast aspersions at Gordon, but I can imagine. I can only imagine how he used to fill the hours
stay
before 5 o'clock
respectful,
when he had to do so. But you know, these days they make us actually work through the day. But it's
I didn't do that to you, mate. Work throughout the day.
And it's been interesting. I'd say probably the last 20 years, particularly, we've kind of come to this point where all the, you know, the media's changing. It's been gradually phasing from newspapers to digital. We're currently in a place where both exist, but we all know in sort of 10 years it's going to probably look as drastically different as it would have done, say, 20 years ago. But even within that, of course, you have that onus on speed, getting stuff up fast, and what is going to draw more eyeballs. I won't use the term previously mentioned, but the other C word. But it's one of those where, you know, there is still room for quality within media, and in fact, there's probably never been a greater emphasis on it as well, I would say. I think if you look at the kind of era of sport that we're in and the kind of topics we're talking about, it's been funny with the Gary Lineker thing, actually. All of the discussion about football, sport and politics should not mix, etc. Well, that's, you know, that I don't know if that was ever true, and it's certainly not true now. And if you'd indulge me to sort of talk about the kind of things I've looked at in the last kind of couple of years, a lot of the stuff around sport washing in Saudi Arabia. You've got geopolitics involved there. You've got doping stories, which are incredibly important to the integrity of sport, and all of those areas. Those are, you know, it's never been more important to actually tell those stories. And even again, do stop me if I'm rambling, because I've been told that's become a tendency.
Well,
but,
carry on, mate.
But there's been even if we say, look, during the pandemic and the role kind of sport played there, and sort of what people were realizing they were missing when they weren't able to do it. I mean, these are incredibly important things to write about, and as such, our outlets, all of them, have put a premium on those stories. They are important. You want to be able to tell them as journalism. So yeah, to go back to your point, Fraser, there is that sort of balance more and more between, doing stuff which is going to get people visiting our websites, but also ensuring that the stuff that they see is good, and you try and get it right most of the time, I suppose.
Interesting. Good.
Yeah, congratulations, Riath. You've been fantastic since you left me 20 years ago, mate. Or was it longer? You've now got a lovely bushy beard, lovely hair. No, credit to you. I really enjoy reading your articles, and you do, like you were just talking about then, you've hit some really, really subjects that people don't really want to touch on. And you've done it in the boxing world, especially with Conor Benn of late as well, with the substances he didn't take, but it's important that people understand that things go on behind the scenes, and you portray that as well, which is important. And it takes a little bit of a bit of bottle to do that as well, Riath. I admire you for doing that and coming out clean and telling it how it is. It sounds like a bit of a Prendergast ploy to me, but there you go.
Cheers, God. Look, I think you and I both know every time we have this conversation, it always reads back to the same road, which is I do still believe you owe me about 10 quid from 25 years ago from promises of reward for my freelance efforts. But I'm sure one day you and I will settle that. But no, I appreciate it. As I have told plenty of people, yourself and Bill Kahn, I plagiarized you guys about 25 years ago, and I like to think I'm still plagiarizing you both now. So maybe that is the Prendergast Villa in me, perhaps. But
do you wondering, Riath, maybe I'm touching on a slightly darker side of the industry here, but your thick skin, obviously the role you're in, when you put your opinions out there, you do have to take a lot of flack. I know you've called out Tyson Fury for a lot of things. I want to as well, and we both know there are a lot of Fury fanboys out there who will hang on every word he says, and you do get stick when you do anything which seemingly anti him. I know as well when you put out your views about Camila Valieva and the saga in the Winter Olympics. Of course, there's always going to be people pushing back on that. You've noticed more and more over the years that maybe we use the term all the time, don't we? But social media, that you have to have maybe thicker skin and be prepared to handle idiotic comments as well as constructive ones.
Absolutely. I mean, look, as Gordon will testify, I've been getting people chipping away at me for years, a long time before I was into journalism. But you're absolutely right. So social media does give a platform, which in the vast majority of cases is a very good thing. It gives more people a chance to say what they're feeling, and the kind of flip side of that is you do get a lot of abuse. I would say certainly within my own experiences, anything I've written about Tyson Fury in the last few years, he seems to have what would be the correct term? He's got a particularly passionate fan base, shall we say? So you do accept it, I suppose, as part of the job, that you're right. If you're writing about high profile individuals, you won't always be kind of greeted warmly by the people who follow them. But it's the other point you were kind of making there, Fraser, and I do, it's something that kind of troubles me with the industry, I suppose, and it probably plays to what you're saying earlier about the sort of changing nature of the industry. We do see a lot more of it now when you go to press conferences in certain sports. There are more people, I would say, who are fans rather than journalists, and to an extent, I understand that as a media landscape, it's moving more towards content production. It's people playing to like-minded viewerships, but within that, you suddenly have the problem where you can go into a room and there would be very few critical voices. And there are certain sports which, I'd say probably all sports, in fact, they do need to have some level of scrutiny, which isn't to say I go into a room and this might surprise my wife when she's like, right, okay, well, you're right, who are you getting in a row with this time? It's not an objective to go in and have a row. There's so many sportsmen who I absolutely admire, but all of them, I think you do need to kind of be able to cast a little bit of a light on them and ensure that things are being done correctly. There's this sort of term, holding people to account, which I think is far too grandiose personally, but it is effectively that. It's being able to look at a situation and say, right, I've got information that says this isn't correct, or beyond that, editorializing and saying I don't think some X should be happening in this particular way. And I do think that's a valuable part of the industry that absolutely needs to stay.
Funny you say what your wife says there about who have you upset this time. Gordon used to say that a lot to me on a Monday morning.
From the same cloth, then. Yeah.
On a happier note, I know you've been out in the Players' Championship, Scotty Scheffler. Are you telling me to put a bet in for the Masters?
Sorry, I completely missed that. Sorry, Brett.
Saying on a more positive note, you've been out covering the Players' Championship. You're now telling me to go out and put a bet on Scotty Scheffler for the Masters.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't listen to any of my betting advice. I think I've probably put in copy in the last 3 weeks. I think I've probably written Rory McIlroy's definitely going to win it. John Rahm's definitely going to win it. Scotty Scheffler's going to definitely win it. So
the kiss of death, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I turn and touch at the moment sort of turns to a scrumpled up betting slip. But he was exceptional. I mean, they call it the sort of the toughest field in golf, the Players' Championship, and he's just won it by 5 strokes. I thought I don't know if you watched any of the Full Swing series, but Brooks Koepka was on it talking about how difficult it is to go up against Scheffler, because it's almost like there isn't a thought going on in his mind, which isn't to say that he's, I've got to get myself out of a hole here. He's an incredibly bright guy, but he's not someone like Rory McIlroy, who at the moment is taking on the sort of mantle for traditional golf against Liv, and perhaps sort of being weighed down with it. He just walks along, hits his golf ball a very long way, walks after it, hits it very close to a stick, putts it, walks off, and gets paid about 4 million quid. He's doing great at the moment.
Riath, I'm going to ask you about the story that has dominated the weekend, and you do have a get out because you've been in America. So if you don't want to comment too much on that's fine. But it's good to have you on when we're talking about sport and media, because this weekend the discussion about Gary Lineker hosting Match of the Day has been the one that's just been all over every single news channel. What have you made of that, albeit from afar, this weekend? Have you followed it?
Yeah, like I said, it's been impossible not to follow it, because I was in I've been in the media centre in Florida all week, and there have been American journalists talking about what's going on with Match of the Day. It's been quite surreal. I wouldn't say I've got an enormous view on it. Just so much that I've found the whole thing absolutely fascinating. I think I'm just trying to think what day it would have been. Friday, I suppose, when it all exploded on Twitter.
Yeah.
And just watching the pundits drop out one by one in this kind of almost I am Spartacus moment was it was absolutely captivating. I mean, in fairness, the golf tournament was getting pretty dull at that point. So, hence being on Twitter, seeing what various ex-pros were going to be doing with their Saturday evening. But But I think it goes to show. I never, like I said, I didn't see the actual 20-minute broadcast, but I've read a lot about it. My colleague Ollie Holt did a superb piece on it actually, in the paper yesterday. There's a little plug there for the Daily Mail, but it is remarkable, really, as a scenario, and also I suppose what it means going forward for the BBC and their stance on impartiality as well.
Yeah. It seemed they didn't fully consider what was going to happen next when they made the decision to have Gary Lineker not presenting it. It's almost like they didn't see that one by one, from Ian Wright through to Alan Shearer to Mika Richards to Jermaine Genius to Alex Scott to, like a domino effect, they were all going to pull out. You do wonder what they thought was going to happen when they made
when Jason Mohammed pulls out a final score, you're in serious trouble, aren't you?
We even got to the point where Gordon ruled himself out of hosting the day at one point. That's how far it got.
The flip side of the coin is if they all dropped out, I would say, well, don't use them ever again, and it would save you a fortune, and the license fee would go down a lot.
And then you get a completely soulless 25 minutes that we got on Saturday night, Gord.
It's all about football, isn't it? It's not about what people say or talk about. It's about getting that ball in the back of the net.
It adds
like,
to it,
like Liverpool did against Man United 7 times.
Always playing the long game there, Gordon. The thing that stood out for me there was about your license fee.
Riath, before we finish, we should talk about your time in Pembrokeshire. One thing we wanted to clear up from the first part: did you and Gordon ever play together for Prendergast Villa? I think we touched on this last time.
Gordon would have been the club secretary when I was playing there.
Thank you, mate.
It will go down as one of the great regrets of my life that Gordon and I never shared a pitch. on account of a story he's told many times about a young bright-eyed Gordon stepping off the train at Paddington or Cardiff, about to go for a rugby trial and being collared by Bill Nicholson, desperate to bring him under his wing at Tottenham. If only I could have seen it with my own eyes.
We have heard that story once or twice, haven't we, over the last few years?
I never talk about it.
We thought it would have been a veteran Gordon Thomas and a young Riath Al-Samarrai maybe playing for Prendergast Villa.
There are some saying it would have made an unstoppable combination. I'm not going to talk about
What about your memories, seriously, of working in Pembrokeshire, Riath? Do you look back on that time pretty fondly? Because you talk to journalists and people in the media, and always that grounding you get working locally, that actually listening to the three of you talking, you wonder whether that grounding will even exist now for people coming through the industry. It's certainly a different place now, isn't it? What are your memories that you have of working in Pembrokeshire?
I absolutely loved it. It was great. I'm absolutely. I'm kind of torn because I'm loath to praise Gordon in such a public forum, but he was sincerely he was wonderful, because I mean it's a really, and sort of all of us on the kind of call would be able to agree, it's a very hard industry to get into, and once you do get into it, there aren't actually a huge number of people who want to necessarily help you, because, like I say, this industry's has been changing for as long as I've been involved in it, and by changing in a lot of senses, that's meant shrinking. So why would someone help someone along if they think, oh no, you might want my job in 10 years kind of scenario? So you do have that, and Gordon couldn't have been, again, Gordon, if you wouldn't mind just putting your fingers in your ears a moment. Yeah, he couldn't have been sort of better or kinder. And I still remember him actually asking me if I wanted to cover the Senior Cup final. I think I can actually remember. I want to say it was Hakin Narber.
It would have been Hakin, yeah.
Well, it was always Hakin, but I think Narber was the one I wasn't sure about. I think it was Hakin Narber. I remember just being absolutely I was so nervous about going to cover that game. I can honestly say that having done sort of Olympic finals, whatever, I've not had nerves like that, because I've been given the Senior Cup final. The Senior Cup final growing up was always a massive deal. So no, I thought it was fantastic. And kind of going to your point as well about that grounding disappearing, I am really concerned about that in the point of view of the industry, because we are seeing a scenario where regional and local news is gradually is contracting or disappearing altogether, and those are also the kind of areas where that going back to that sort of tortured phrase of holding power to account, that is where it's actually at its most important. Mm-hmm. And when you start losing that on the local and the regional side of things, I think you're heading for major problems. But from shrinking that to a sort of a journalistic issue, it's enormously problematic, because you do those are the scenarios where you come in and you learn your trade. Now, without doing that, it stands to reason that you're not going to produce as good a journalists. And I would say it's a fairly wide held concern within the industry. There are some brilliant trainee schemes that get run through various other organisations, but I think we probably all agree it's not ideal.
Mm. And it's the same in broadcasting, and that's why things like Pure West Radio are doing a brilliant job actually in Pembrokeshire to give people the opportunity to do that and to serve the communities as well, which is vital. Riath, I think we will let you go because I know you do have a plane to catch at some point. So thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always to talk to you, and congratulations on those awards. Phenomenal stuff, and keep up the good work as well.
Thanks a lot, guys. Great stuff.
Take care.
If you need to kill time at the airport, mate, something you'll appreciate. Alexander has been absolutely calling Tyson Fury's bluff on Twitter all day. It's entertaining me greatly.
There's something to look at. We will take a moment on Pure West Sport. We'll come back for the final part in just a few moments.